horror stories. Story 1.
My name is Emily, and I was fortunate enough to grow up in a household where love was abundant and laughter echoed through the walls. We did everything together: family dinners, movie nights, and even shared the passion for collecting dolls. I've always had a thing for collecting dolls: porcelain dolls, vintage dolls, rag dolls, you name it. They are like silent companions that witnessed every moment of our lives. However, amid the happiness, a sharp difference existed in my best friend Mia's life. Her parents were frequently absent, leaving her isolated in their large vacant house. I would invite her to come over, but her resentment toward my family's closeness was noticeable. Smoking was not allowed in my house, something my parents made clear. When she visited, her eyes would fixate on our tight bond, showing her unease. It was confusing, but I never had the courage to inquire further. One weekend, I decided to leave for a short trip. Little did I know that this would mark the beginning of a nightmarish spiral. When I returned, the walls of my home seemed to hold a heavy, haunting silence. A profound sense of dread enveloped me as I received the devastating news. My mother's lifeless body had been discovered, her life cruelly taken as she lay strangled in the heart of our once happy living room. The horror intensified as I learned that my father's fate had taken a sinister turn too. His car had careened off the road in an eerie accident that defied all logical explanation. I couldn't help but wonder, were these two harrowing events connected? It seemed inevitable. A gnawing question plagued my thoughts: who could commit such heinous acts? The weight of grief pressed down on me as I sat in my room, shattered. Suddenly a sound, a noise emanating from my Furby, jolted me from my thoughts. A garbled scream pierced the air, a sound I recognized all too well. It was my mother's voice, filled with terror. And beneath that, a faint whisper, almost inaudible but hauntingly familiar, Mia's voice. As the recording played on, my mind raced, connecting the dots in a horrifying revelation. The Furby had unknowingly captured the moment of my mother's murder, her screams echoing through the device's speakers, and in the background, Mia's voice, faint but undeniable, forming a horrifying backdrop to the tragedy. Rage and grief fused within me, a maelstrom of emotions too intense to bear. Mia, my best friend, had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. A week later, I decided to talk to Mia directly. The fire of vengeance burning within me obliterated any inclination to pardon or erase from memory. The mere prospect of jail felt like an undeserved mercy for her. So I went to her house. She was sitting on her bed and I stood in front of her holding the Furby, my hand shaking. She looked confused and offended when I accused her of murdering my mom. When I played the recording, the room seemed to shrink, as if the walls were closing in on us. It was clear that Mia knew what she was hearing. In a quiet, almost hushed voice, Mia said, "You're better off without them." In that moment, a realization struck me. She had killed my father's too. As the recording ended, I felt a primal urge, a desire for vengeance that eclipsed all reason. The Furby, once my innocent companion, became an instrument of retribution. I raised it, striking Mia repeatedly, the weight of my grief and fury pouring into each blow. She crumpled to the ground, a puppet with its strings severed. In that moment, I lit one of her cigarettes and watched as the embers danced before releasing it onto her bed. Flames licked at the fabric, a consuming inferno that mirrored the rage within me. As the room caught fire, my heart felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Walking away from the house, flames painting the sky behind me, a smile played upon my lips. The agony of loss, the betrayal of a friend, they had birthed something new within me, something dark and unrelenting. As the sirens wailed in the distance, my steps grew lighter, and I knew that even though Mia's punishment was swift, the ghosts of our shared past would haunt her long after the flames were extinguished.
Story 2.
My name is Shane, a retired baseball player seeking relaxation, family reconnection, and a return to normalcy. Ironically, despite my uneasy history with dolls, it was quite funny when I found myself searching for a Tickle Me Elmo doll. But my sister insisted that I bring a gift to the party, and this was the best thing I could come up with. Reluctantly, I scoured Facebook Marketplace and, to my surprise, stumbled upon one for sale. The seller gave me a somewhat sketchy vibe, but the deal was just too good to let slip through my fingers. Little did I know that this seemingly harmless Tickle Me Elmo doll would lead me down a path of unimaginable terror. Its infectious laughter and vibrant red fur seemed like the perfect gift, but I had no inkling that it would soon drag me into a chilling nightmare. On a thunderous day, I carried the doll to my sister's house for the birthday festivities. Little did I know that my nephew had outgrown his interest in dolls, and to my surprise, he seemed to dislike the gift. It turned out he hadn't played with dolls in years. Faced with this unforeseen turn of events, I had no choice but to bring the Tickle Me Elmo doll back home with me. As night fell, an unsettling aura descended upon the atmosphere. The once cheerful ambiance turned into a palpable unease. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard a faint, eerie laughter drifting from the living room. Initially dismissing it as a trick of my mind, the laughter persisted, growing more unsettling by the moment. Compelled by a blend of curiosity and unease, I ventured into the living room, drawn by the eerie rhythm of sound. The storm outside added an extra layer of intensity to the atmosphere. To my bewilderment, the Tickle Me Elmo doll was on the floor, despite my distinct recollection of having placed it on the couch. The sinister laughter reverberated through the air, sending shivers down my spine. Strangely, as I stepped into the room, the laughter came to an abrupt halt, casting an unsettling silence over everything. After returning to my room, a growing unease took hold of me, intensifying the sense of impending doom. And then I heard it again, that unsettling sound. The once innocent laughter of the doll had undergone a sinister transformation this time, as if compelling me to react. Acting swiftly, I disposed of the doll, depositing it into the outdoor trash bin in an effort to distance myself from its unsettling influence. But, as I turned away, a chilling whisper insinuated itself into my ears. "Tickle me." Panic surged within me, propelling me back indoors. Frenziedly, I secured doors and windows in a desperate attempt to find refuge from the encroaching darkness. The night proved to be an agonizing test, with memories of the doll's laughter and the spectral voice replaying in my mind. The morning unveiled an unimaginable horror. News of a string of murders had surfaced, suggesting the chilling presence of a potential serial killer among us. Curiously, at each crime scene, only shreds of distinctive red fur were discovered, adding an enigmatic layer to the unsettling puzzle. Panic and fear gripped the town, and the air seemed charged with a sense of impending doom. In the midst of this chaos, I couldn't shake the feeling that the Tickle Me Elmo doll was connected to the sinister events. And as I sat watching the news, trying to make sense of it all, I heard a soft rustling behind me. My heart raced as I turned to see the doll sitting on the couch, its eyes fixed on me. Then, in a voice that sent a chill down my spine, it whispered, "You're next." Before I could react, the doll erupted into eerie, chilling laughter. A surge of both dread and determination coursed through me. I couldn't allow this malevolent force to persist in its reign of terror. Grasping a baseball bat, memories of my days on the field flooding back, I squared off against the doll. Its laughter seemed to taunt my resolve. Summoning all my strength, I swung the bat with unwavering determination, the motion reminiscent of my swings on the baseball field. The doll shattered into fragments. In that moment, the laughter came to an abrupt halt, replaced by a haunting silence that lingered in the air. In the aftermath, a mixture of relief and lingering unease prevailed. The town bore scars that time would never fully heal. As I surveyed the now empty streets, a sense of desolation washed over me. A gentle breeze brushed against my skin, carrying with it an unspoken message. The malevolent presence, I realized, hadn't disappeared. It had stealthily shifted, discovering a new abode within me. Almost involuntarily, I found myself repeating the message aloud, the very words seeming to echo through the wind. "Tickle me." And in that chilling moment, comprehension dawned. The darkness that had once inhabited the Tickle Me Elmo doll had now taken refuge within me.
Story 3.
In the remote town of Hollowbrook, I found myself on a desolate road late at night, my heart weighed down by the darkness both inside and out. My name is Tommy, and I was driving back home after a grueling shift at the hospital. Fog clung to the road like a ghostly shroud, and my senses were on edge. Suddenly, a muffled thud shattered the silence, and my car jerked violently. After I crawled out of the car, I heard a hissing sound emanating from the tires. Panic surged through me as I fought to make sense of it, but the chilling reality was becoming apparent. I was stranded on the side of the road. With trembling hands, I grabbed my flashlight, casting eerie beams into the inky blackness. I looked around as the fog swirled around me. My breath quickened as I found a small, sharp object embedded in my tire, a spike. My heart pounded in my chest, and an unsettling thought crept into my mind. This was the third time this month my tire had suffered such a strange fate. Could it be more than just coincidence? A shiver ran down my spine as I wondered if someone had deliberately planted this spike, and if so, what sinister purpose lay behind it. As I bent down to examine the damage, I couldn't help but recall a chilling story I had seen on my social media feed just the other day about someone being killed along the side of the highway. I had shrugged it off as just another scary headline. But now, in the midst of this eerie situation, that story seemed all too real. I pushed the unsettling thought aside, realizing that if I were to get home, I needed to figure out how to change this tire. With that determination in mind, I pulled up a YouTube video on my phone for some quick tips on changing a flat tire. I hoped the tutorial would guide me through the process and get me back on the road safely. But as I focused on the screen, the night remained anything but silent. A rustling in the woods nearby caught my attention, and my flashlight trembled as I anxiously scanned the shadows, revealing a tall, menacing figure emerging from the darkness. I fumbled for my cell phone, only to watch it slip from my grasp and shatter on the ground. I was trapped, alone, and vulnerable lay in the clutches. As the dark figure closed in, I wasn't sure if this person was friendly or another potential threat. With uncertainty gnawing at me, I waved and yelled for help in his direction. However, as he stepped forward, my blood ran cold when I caught a glint of steel gripped tightly in his hand. Fear surged through me, and instinct took over. Without a second thought, I sprinted to the other side of the road, my heart pounding like a drumbeat of terror. The menacing stranger gave chase, and I veered into the woods, branches tearing at my clothes and thorns ripping at my skin. But I couldn't stop. My only hope was to escape this sinister figure and find refuge in the darkness of the forest. Behind me, the footsteps of my pursuer grew closer, hauntingly relentless. I stumbled through the underbrush, tears blurring my vision. The night seemed never-ending, and the woods offered no refuge. Desperation gnawed at my insides until I stumbled upon a clearing. In the distance, I saw the faint glow of headlights, and it was then that a chilling realization dawned upon me. This had to be the infamous killer I had read about on social media, a menacing presence lurking in the darkness. Summoning every ounce of strength, I sprinted toward those distant lights, my voice a desperate cry for help. The approaching vehicle screeched to a halt, and a group of 3 strangers rushed out to help me, but it was too late. The man, lurking in the shadows, seized the opportunity. In a frenzied act of terror, he struck them down one by one, leaving them lifeless and sprawled on the roadside. Panic consumed me as I sprinted through the woods, desperately trying to escape. My heart raced, and fear gripped every fiber of my being. In my frantic flight, I didn't see the lifeless forms strewn in my path, and I tripped over one of the bodies, crashing to the ground with a gut-wrenching thud. Gasping for breath, I struggled to my feet, but the man was relentless. He sprung his blade once, missing by a hair's breadth, but on the second strike, he hit his mark. Agonizing pain erupted in my side as the knife pierced through my flesh. A cry of anguish escaped my lips, but there was no mercy. He followed it up by stabbing me in the chest, and as I turned over in a desperate bid to escape, one final blow plunged into my back. The world around me spun, and darkness closed in like a suffocating shroud. With each heartbeat, my life ebbed away, and as I lay there, gasping for breath, the world went black. The next time I regained consciousness, I was in the hospital, surrounded by the worried faces of my family. They explained that I had been in the hospital for days, my life hanging by a thread. My parents had packed up all my belongings as I was discharged, and with their loving support, I embarked on the journey back home. I settled into the car, feeling a sense of relief, but exhaustion weighed heavy on my eyelids. I drifted in and out of sleep during the drive, the world outside blending into a surreal haze. As we arrived home and I stepped out of the car, a subtle sound caught my attention. The hiss of air escaping from the tires. A chill ran down my spine, and a creeping sense of unease enveloped me. But before I could react or investigate, the world around me once again descended into darkness.
Story 4.
In the moonlit darkness of the dense woods, Mark had been strung up, blindfolded, and subjected to excruciating pain. His arms and legs bore deep, agonizing cuts, and hours of relentless screams had left him in agony. However, a fortunate turn of events came when his captors finally left the room to rest, offering Mark a fleeting opportunity to escape the nightmarish ordeal. Summoning every ounce of strength, he managed to untie himself, grabbed his phone from the ground and ran, staggering and stumbling, until he burst out of the farmhouse into the chilling night air. Mark huddled behind a gnarled tree, breathless and terrified. His heart raced like a drumbeat, and his trembling hands clutched his phone as he desperately typed out messages to his wife, Jess, who was his only lifeline in this nightmare. Sent at 12:35 a.m. Mark, Jess, please, you have to read this. I can't believe I'm in this situation, but I need your help. Silence lingered, broken only by the distant chirping of crickets. Mark's eyes darted anxiously through the inky darkness, fearing the imminent return of his relentless stalkers. Sent at 12:55 a.m. Mark, Jess, I thought I lost them, but they're still out here. 2 of them. I don't know who they are or what they want, but they won't stop chasing me. A gust of cold wind rustled the leaves overhead, and Mark could feel the chill seeping into his bones. His flashlight illuminated the damp forest floor as he moved cautiously through the underbrush, snapping twigs beneath his feet. Sent at 01:29 a.m. Mark, I'm moving deeper into the woods, trying to stay quiet. It's like they're playing a sick game of cat and mouse with me. I should have listened to you when you warned me about them. The distant sound of snapping branches sent a shiver down Mark's spine. He glanced around, paranoia clawing at him from all sides. Sent at 02:45 a.m. Mark, Jess, do you remember how you told me they'd been following you too? I thought you were exaggerating or imagining things, but you were right. They're real, Jess, and I don't know what to do. Mark could hear faint voices, carried by the wind, and they sent a fresh wave of panic coursing through him. Sent at 03:17 a.m. Mark, they're getting closer, Jess. I can hear them whispering like they're enjoying this. I'm terrified. Every step seemed like an eternity as Mark tried to evade his pursuers. The beam of his flashlight wavered, revealing gnarled trees and twisted roots that seemed to reach out for him. Sent at 03:55 a.m. Mark, I love you, Jess. I wish I'd listened to you sooner. If I don't make it out of here, I need you to know how sorry I am for everything. Just as Mark hit send, 2 figures emerged from the shadows, their faces obscured by masks. One held a glinting knife, and the other gripped a length of rope. Mark's phone dropped to the ground, its screen illuminating the horrifying tableau. 04:32 a.m. Mark, Jess, they've found me. The message went unsent, forever lost in the darkness as Mark's world dissolved into screams, the rustling of leaves, and the horrifying realization that he would never escape the relentless pursuit of his stalkers.
Please like and subscribe.